Good morning. At least if you're watching it in the morning, this is a good morning, hopefully. I'm Danette Mann, and this is Spa for Your Mind. The topic today is turning off your inner critic. And these are 15-minute segments. I hope that these are being helpful to you. I believe that during this pretty significantly troubling and unprecedented time, we need all the help we can get. So I'm hoping that this can be one of your sources for feeling better and giving yourself a break. So, turning off the inner critic. I'm going to start by talking about how to approach being self-compassionate. And the journey toward becoming a mindful, self-compassionate person is one that has certain characteristics to it. So one of them is that it's more than a journey, it's an adventure. So if we think about what is an adventure, it is sort of like an unknown. There's some things that we're not sure how they're going to turn out. We're not sure where we're going to what side roads we might be going to take. There's a little bit of excitement to it compared to a journey where it's really just going from point A to point B. So it has more of the unknown, letting things unfold, letting things surprise us. And that's an important piece to learning to be more mindfully self-compassionate. It's also like being a scientist in that we need to approach it with an open mind and let what we learn and how the practice work for us help us know what we want to do with, it could be a good experience, it can be a not as good experience, it can be a neutral experience, and all of those are okay. So there'll be times when self-compassion may come easier, sometimes when it may become more difficult. And as scientists, we're not looking for a particular outcome, we're looking for whatever shows up. And that's also an important piece. The mindful self-compassion journey is also one of self-discovery. We need to know what it is that keeps us from being kind to ourselves. And then we need to learn how to actually then turn that around and become more kind to ourselves. So that's self-discovery, because sometimes we are not sure at the beginning of our journey why we treat ourselves the way we do. Where did it come from? Whose voice is it? What do we think it does, how it serves us? What does it do for us? And so as we begin to go into a more intentional path toward being more self-compassionate, then this discovery about who we are, how we got here, helps us know what we need to do to change. So that's another piece. The mindful self-compassion journey should not be difficult. It should not be a struggle. It should be easy. And if you find yourself struggling with it in any way, then a rethink, just stepping back and noticing where is the struggle and how can I let that go and still maintain the practice that I'm trying to achieve. So we want to think about these things because they help us approach the journey with an attitude of openness and acceptance, self-discovery without self-judgment, and sometimes learning that there are other people that have been in our lives who have contributed to the negativity that we may carry around with us toward ourselves, perhaps unintentionally. Parents often give off negative information to kids about their behavior, about not doing things well or not thinking through things. And sometimes those get internalized and become more a part of who we think we are. So the self-discovery part is a really helpful piece. Another thing to think about with approaching the self-compassion is patience, giving yourself plenty of time, knowing that this is this is not a short adventure. This is a long adventure. And I believe that probably through the rest of your life, you can continue to find areas where self-compassion could become more available to you, and that you could utilize it in ways that you don't think about. The journey just begins with just the basic ideas and trying to see all the ways in which it can be utilized and how it helps us turn off that negative critic. And then we find that that critic is showing up in very subtle ways, in specific situations, in our belief system about ourselves. And so it's an unfolding. It's almost, to me, it's a bit like a puzzle, and you keep putting more and more pieces into the puzzle. But the benefits begin to show up fairly fast. So it's not like you have to go on this long journey before you see any shift in how you feel and how you approach things and how you talk to yourself. That you'll start to notice. It just continues to grow. Like, you'll get better and better and better in completely bigger and bigger ways of your life in using these skills and treating yourself better. And the inner critic is not to be pushed aside and disregarded, because it has a task in mind, and that task is to really protect us, to help us survive, to help us get through tough things. It just doesn't do it in a way is helpful. So we want to get to know that inner critic a little bit and see if we can be with it in a way that helps us shift the focus and let it know we don't need it to be so negative, that we're okay, that we've got this, and turn them into allies to help us become more self-compassionate. So the suggestion that I have for today is to notice how you approach different parts of your life. So think about the different, you could separate it in terms of different kinds of relationships, your wellness program, your home life, your work life, your spiritual life, how much time you spend doing things you enjoy, how much time you spend doing things that you feel like you should be doing or have to do, and just see where the balance is. And if you're not towing a line, if you're not getting up when your alarm goes off, you're sleeping in a little bit, and that is a reason that you beat yourself up. Or if you're late to things and that's what you beat yourself up for, or you eat things that you know are not good for you, and so you beat yourself up about that. So there's all these different places in life, how you talk to people, not just yourself, but how you sometimes think about and talk to other people. What you do on social media, how you spend your time on social media. There's probably thousands of different places you could put your attention in terms of where you become hard on yourself. And that means, like judgmental, critical, expecting more of yourself. And I'd like you to write and perhaps draw, depending on what you enjoy the most. You could do both. But if writing is more your cup of tea, then you might do that. If drawing is more appealing to you, then you could do that. And I want you to draw what would be different, or write out what would be different if you approached these things as an adventure, these places where you are critical. Like, what would the difference be? So that can take some time, some stepping back, contemplating, not rushing into feeling like you have the answers to these things. Let them ruminate in your mind a little bit, just kind of roll around in the back, and let things arise for you rather than trying to find the answer. Just kind of let things show up. That's where we get our best and most accurate, truthful data, is when we let it come from within and bubble up so that then our brain picks it up. We get much less better, we get worse information. It's not nearly as helpful or accurate if we try to use our left brain to decide what that's about, because then we're pushing it from the top down, and the inherent wisdom of our bodies and our emotions are not taken into consideration. So the best way to get information that we can really use and really count on and trust is from the bottom up. So it's physical, emotional, and then mental. So I offered that to you as a practice for self-growth and how learning more about this self-critic, this inner critic that maybe dogs you. I mean, for some people it's not so bad, but for others it's like a constant daily intrusion into their lives. The second part of that would be then, what gets in the way of becoming more kind and compassionate in those situations and less critical? Like, what would be the roadblocks? And that takes time as well. There's usually 3 levels of answers that we can come to. The first level is kind of easy and surface, and we get to it really quickly. The second level is a little bit deeper. We're really kind of tapping into a little bit more of our inner parts of ourselves that know a little more. And then the third level gets really true and real. Often when I start a class or presentation, I will ask people, why are you here? And initially it's like, well, I've been wanting to do this, so I saw the class and I signed up, or oh, my friend told me I should come, or whatever it is. So that's the first level. Then I say, okay, why are you really here? And that starts them to think about, well, why did I pick now? What's going on now? And we get the third level, we're really getting down to, hopefully, one of those core pieces of information about us that is at a very deep level, that's really looking for something different, wants to do things differently, wants more information. So I think if you do those two activities, noticing how you approach different parts of your life where you're critical and judgmental towards yourself, and write or draw what would be different if you weren't, if you approached life in those particular parts of your life as adventures where you could be kind to yourself, you could treat it more as it's okay. And then third, what keeps you from being able to do that? So I hope that you find this to be a helpful practice and exercise for the week. And you can always post on Facebook what you find out if you're brave and willing to do that. I think it would generate a really interesting conversation. I hope you will like the Facebook page, especially if you're enjoying these segments. And I really enjoy doing them myself. I am pleased to be able to have this available to you. I just am trying to find the ways that I feel I can serve with those who are, with all of us. I mean, it's for me as well. We're all suffering. We're all in a painful time, a historic time, but not a positively historic time, a really scary, unknowing future time. And humans don't handle the unknown very well. So many of us are truly trying to figure out how are we going to move forward, and what's life going to look like in 2 months, in 6 months, in 9 months, in a year. So this is my small little contribution, and I hope that you find it helpful. I do have some information on the website that you might be interested in. There's research and resources on different topics of being more kind to yourself and the inner critic, and how you can treat yourself better at work and relax your mind in different ways that are more beneficial. So, if you want to do more search and looking at resources, there's my website. There's also Kristen Neff's website, self-compassion.org. And I would also say the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion would also be a place to check out. That's the centerformsc.org. These are all mindfulness and self-compassion resources. As for therapy, on my therapy page, you'll find out how I use mindfulness and self-compassion in therapy, as well as lots of other modalities, and how this, coaching or therapeutic help might further your journey toward the growth of becoming self-compassionate and less inner critic based. All right, take care. See you soon.